Remember that we now have a range of cells named months, and it takes place from C3 all the way down to E6. So I'm going to use this range of cells by using its name in different functions. So first of all, I'm going to show you how to use the max function. And the max function is very easy. It just allows us to find the maximum value in a range of cells. So I start all functions with an equal sign, of course, and I can start typing in max. And there is a max value that, well, a max function, and it returns the largest value in a set of values, and it ignores logical values and text. So as soon as I open the parenthesis, it does ask me for a list of numbers separated by commas. Now you'll see that number 1 is in bold because that's the current argument or parameter that I'm working with. And you'll see that the second number is in square brackets. And that second number in square brackets is supposed to tell you that any other parameter or argument in this function is optional. So if it's in square brackets, you can leave it off. But what we're actually going to do this time is not include a list of commas, a list of numbers separated by commas. I'm actually going to select this range of cells, and you'll see that it automatically recognizes that it's called months. So I want to find the maximum value in the range of cells called months. So I hit enter, and it gives me the answer is 523. Now there is a similar function for minimum, and it is, of course, is called min, and it returns the smallest value. And I could, of course, type in a single cell reference like C3 and all the way down to a range reference in D6, and that will work too, but I'm actually going to just use the word months because I want to find the minimum value of sales that were in that list of months. So the minimum value is 56. Now there are a couple of related functions. I can find the largest value in a list, and it uses a function called large. Now this one is kind of strange, and we're going to see different functions that have different parameters that can be taken in. And you'll see that this one, the information or the help on it says that it returns the kth largest value. For example, the 5th largest number. So if I open the round bracket, it says it's looking for an array and then a comma. So I would type the comma as the second argument, and then some number called k. So k can be anywhere from 1 to however many values are inside that specific array. Now I'm not actually going to use an array. I'm actually just going to use a range of cells. So an array is something specific in Excel, and we're not going to be working with them today, but I can specify a range of cells or a defined name when it asks for an array. So I have specified my array, or my range of cells, called months, and I press the comma, and now the k is in bold. So it's asking for a value k. So if I want the 3rd largest value in this list, I can type in the 3, and I close my parenthesis and hit enter, and I get the value 489, which is the 3rd largest value in this list. Now I can also find the second smallest, or any other value of smallest, by using the small function. So equals small returns the kth smallest value in a data set, and again my range is called months, and my the argument for k is going to be number 2 because I want the second smallest value. So I find that the second smallest value in the range of cells is 70. So these are some very good functions to use. With maximum and minimum, I can find the largest and smallest values in a list, but with large and small, I can find the 1st, 2nd, or 3rd largest. So if I was looking for team rankings, or if I had a number of salespeople and I wanted to give awards to the top 3 sales in my sales division, then I can use the largest function to find the top 3 sales. So those are good uses for the large and small functions. Now there are going to be a lot of times when you want your spreadsheet to do some thinking for you. So there are a couple of functions that are very useful to use, and they allow the spreadsheet to find answers that you might be unable to do if you have a large number of data points or if you have a lot of data to work with. For example, if I wanted to count the number of values that were higher than 300 units, I can simply use well, first of all, I'm just going to describe this with a label, and that is more than 300. So I can start a function called countif. Now you'll notice that there are a whole bunch of functions that start with the word count, but I'm just going to jump to the countif, and it counts the number of cells within a range that meet the given criteria. So with my round brackets, now I see a different list of parameters that it's being asked for. So a range of cells, simply the one that I'm using is called months, and now a little secret technique here for the criteria. Now there's one special thing about using criteria in Excel, and especially with this countif function, is that it has to be in quotation marks. So for example, if I wanted to count the number of cells where the value in each cell was greater than 300, then I'd have to put that criteria, which is greater than 300, in quotation marks. So if I close that off and hit enter, then I find that there are 8 values, or 8 places in my range of cells in which the values are greater than 300. I'm going to edit that equation again by pressing F2, and I'll just show you the kind of error you might get if you leave off the quotation marks. So I hit enter, and it says the formula you typed contains an error. I can get help by clicking help, or I can click OK, and I can just go back in and make sure that I have quotation marks around it. I've added a couple more labels here so that I can jump straight into the equations. If I also want to find values that were less than 250, I can, or actually equal to, less than or equal to 250, then I can use that same function, the countif. My range is still going to be months. And now the criteria is in quotation marks. It's less than and equal to. So both at the same time, you put in both those symbols, and that's the less than or equal to sign. So make sure you recognize the conditional operators that are used in criteria. And I want less than or equal to 250. Put in the quotation marks, hit enter, and I find that 3 of the values are less than 250. Now I can finally also use a similar function to add the sum of all the values that are less than 100. So I've used the sum function before, but there's a SUMIF function, and it adds the cells specified by a given criteria. So my range is also months. My criteria is now, of course it's in quotation marks, so it's going to be less than 100. And you'll notice that there is an argument called sum range, but it's in square brackets, so I'm actually going to not use it. I'll close the parenthesis, hit enter, and I find that the sum of all the values of unit sales that are less than 100 comes to a total of 204 cars that have been sold. Here is a list of the functions that we've used today. Make sure that you know how to use each of these functions and become familiar with the different list of arguments or parameters that are available, such as the names for ranges, arrays, when to use criteria, and also remember, always put quotation marks around criteria when used in countif and SUMIF functions.